In the USSR, there were more than 100 cities that were either completely abandoned or only partially inhabited. Some cities disappeared from the maps so suddenly that their former residents still do not know the reasons for the evacuation. But what really happened? Why did entire settlements suddenly disappear from the map? Let's unravel these dark mysteries. Industrial ghost town, disappearing overnight. Imagine a town where yesterday everything was as usual. Children were playing in the yards, people were returning from work, in the kitchens were preparing dinner. And the next day, silence. All the residents disappeared overnight as if they had vanished. They left their belongings, food on the tables, even the lights in the houses. It looked as if people just left for a minute and never came back. What could have caused people to leave their homes so urgently? Industrial was a closed city. It existed for military purposes, and everything that went on there was top secret. Residents of neighboring settlements said that the day before the disappearance, strange troops and military equipment had come to the town, and in the morning the town was already empty. No one knew what had happened. There are speculations that experiments with radioactive materials were conducted in Promyślenie. Perhaps there was an accident and everyone was urgently evacuated to hide the scale of the catastrophe. Until now, the archives keep classified data about this city, which do not reveal the truth. Some researchers believe that the radioactive materials that were handled in Promyślenie can still pose a danger to the surrounding area. Now imagine that this is not the only city that suddenly disappeared. There were other places in the USSR that were erased from the map and from people's memories. Ready to learn more? Then we want to tell you about the next closed city, Arzamas 16. Imagine a city where thousands of people live, but nobody knows about it. It is not on the map, they do not talk about it in the news, and ordinary citizens cannot get there. These cities existed in the USSR, but their reality was hidden from everyone except those who worked and lived there. Why were they hidden from the world and what was going on there? Closed cities were built around top-secret facilities, nuclear power plants, missile bases, and biological weapons factories. In the city of Arzamas 16, nuclear weapons were being developed. Anyone who accidentally approached the city could disappear forever. So carefully guarded were the secrets. In another closed city, scientists were developing biological weapons capable of destroying entire countries. In such cities lived thousands of people. Their population could reach up to 100,000 people. These cities were autonomous. They had stores, schools, hospitals. But for the rest of the country, they simply didn't exist. Everything that happened behind closed gates remained a secret. They were hidden for a reason. The USSR was developing dangerous technologies that could change the course of history. The development of nuclear and biological weapons was conducted in complete secrecy. Residents of closed cities could not leave freely, and those who worked there signed non-disclosure documents and lived in constant danger. It is known that some closed cities are still classified to this day. In the archives, there are documents that even today remain inaccessible. In one of these cities, scientists created a virus capable of destroying entire continents, but the project was never completed. The town of Red Mountain. The time of the gold rush. Many settlements in the north sprang up around mines and mines. Imagine people going to the harsh northern lands of the USSR for the dream of getting rich. Gold, coal, rare metals. The northern territories attracted thousands of workers and engineers. Entire cities were built here, where life was boiling. But when resources dried up, people simply abandoned their homes and disappeared. What happened to these settlements and why did they become ghost towns? Workers came looking for a living, hoping for a better life. Everything went on as normal until one day the workers discovered that radioactive waste had been buried underneath the town for decades. People began to get sick, dying of unknown diseases, and soon the town was completely deserted. Eventually, in Red Mountain, radioactive waste proved to be the cause of many deaths, and the town emptied in just a few months. The missing inhabitants of the northern cities are still considered one of the most mysterious mysteries. Their traces disappeared along with the city. When natural resources ran out, the cities lost their importance. There were no more jobs, and people had no choice but to leave. But the reason wasn't always obvious. Sometimes cities were emptied because of accidents, disease, or other hazards. The Gulag and its cities. Imagine cities that are built on suffering and death. These places grew up around the Gulag camps, where tens of thousands of people, convicted of crimes or simply repressed, worked in horrible conditions. When the camps closed, the towns became redundant and quickly emptied out. But not all traces of those dark times disappeared with them. One such town is Vorkuta. Here was one of the largest camps of the Gulag. Prisoners built the city, mined coal, lived in inhuman conditions. When the camp closed, Vorkuta began to empty, but a terrible memory was left behind. To this day, in the abandoned parts of the city are found mass graves of prisoners who died during the repressions. The city seems to have frozen in time, preserving the gruesome traces of thousands of victims. There are rumors that some camps conducted secret medical experiments on prisoners. People were used for gruesome research, and to this day, this data is still kept under the secret. What exactly was done to the people and what the consequences were remains a mystery. The cities built around the camps were completely dependent on them. When the Gulag was closed, the inhabitants simply left. There was no more work. The city buildings quickly fell into disrepair, and the memory of the tragedies remains only in graves and forgotten documents. There were cities in the USSR that disappeared as if they had never existed. One such town was found in Siberia by accident 40 years after it had been wiped off the maps. All the inhabitants had disappeared, and the documents that survived only speak of mass repression. But what happened to the people, no one ever found out. The place is still shrouded in mystery. Even stranger things happened in other disappeared cities. Some of them still record anomalous phenomena. People who have been there tell of strange sounds, flashes of light, and other unexplained events. Could this be related to what happened in these cities before they disappeared? Or are there even more mystical forces at work here? Why were they erased from history? There are all kinds of theories. Perhaps the government was trying to cover up some dangerous experiments or tragic events. Some cities were destroyed by catastrophes, and their traces were simply swept under the rug. Many of them still remain closed to the general public, and their history is shrouded in darkness. These places hold terrible secrets that may never be revealed.